How are you all? I'm back again. I'm Mona Lisa Joshi, founder and director of a contemporary publishing house called Chrysanthemum Chronicles. This is a New Delhi based publishing house, and this is my virtual talk show called Mona Lisa's Talk Show. And this is season 4, episode 4 happening today. And I have another interesting guest with me. Her name is Dr. Neena Verma. She is a leadership, resilience, and well-being coach and trainer, appreciative inquiry advisor, and master trainer, grief and growth practitioner and educator, therapeutic and growth writing coach. So, welcome, Dr. Neena ji. How are you?
Thank you so much. Namaste and good evening to you and to all those people who are live with us. And thank you so much. Yes, I'm good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good and looking forward to have wonderful conversation with you to know a lot about grief, growth, grace journey because I'm totally new to this concept. Before this, I haven't, got an exposure to such kind of, therapy and the effects and also the models that you have used. So I would like to talk about that.
Thank you so much.
And
I'm very grateful that you found this theme of interest and you decided to pick it up. This is not a very popular theme. Not many people pick it up because of the hard emotions it tends to trigger and it how it tends to emotionally affect people. But you have shown great interest, and I so appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you so much. The pleasure is all mine. And I think we need to talk about it because every other person after COVID or before that also must have experienced this and also during the COVID times. So, this is something we really need to talk about and address. So, let's start the discussion. I really would like to ask you first that you have mentioned that you are a leadership, resilience, and well-being coach. So, firstly, I want to know that what does that mean, and how do you help people with the post-traumatic grief?
Okay. So basically, I've had a long professional journey as a leadership and organization change and development expert. And I was consulting and I was coaching and I was helping organizations design their learning and organization development interventions, which would address the entire organizational system. So that's what my main professional work was. And I had my professional training as an applied behavioral science expert. My doctorate is in organizational behavior and development. So that is what my focus area was. Until 2007, 6 and 7 cusp. That's when in one of the executive coaching assignment that I was doing with a top leader in an organization, in a telecom organization, by third week, I realized that that gentleman was sitting on a huge heap of, frozen grief and solidified trauma from his early childhood, which had come from multiple losses within a gap of less than 2 years. So between his age of 9 years to 11 years, there were multiple losses in the family of all this, authority figures, parent figures, people who were running the family. And overnight, this gentleman had emerged to become the man of the family at the tender age of 11. And how he learned to, he trained himself to be stoic, he trained himself to be in charge and be in command of their very difficult situation. So, what happened in the process somewhere, perhaps his own grief and trauma uh, was buried and got frozen and solidified over a period of time. When we met, he was already in his mid 40s, 46, 47, at a very senior position in his company. And because of his potential and talent and competence, company wanted to retain him any which way. But there were issues, people didn't know why he ended up playing the victim um, mode every now and then. So that's how he had come in coaching with me. The mandate was to help him get over his victim pattern and victim tendencies and move from there to a more healthy functioning style, more healthy behavioral style. By third session, when I realized that the issue lied somewhere else, so I reported to the organization that this is not my domain. I'm not a trained grief therapist. Though I am an applied behavioral science expert, I'm trained and I'm proficient in humanistic psychology, depth psychology, but grief is a little complex and unique area. I'm not trained in that.
Okay.
So they said fine, but then after a few weeks, they came back and said that he's feeling some comfort with you and he wants to continue with you. Now that made me very nervous because it was a very complex need, peculiar need for which I did not have specialist training.
Okay.
But anyway, they insisted and I then stayed put. So honestly, they say do whatever, but I didn't know what is that whatever. So I
Yeah.
actually did nothing. I just held the space for that gentleman.
Okay.
And in holding the space somewhere slowly and gradually something happened and he began to touch his vulnerable side which he had buried deep in, and he started to recognize his difficult emotions and he started to give voice to them. So when all of that started to happen slowly and gradually, he could see himself in a larger frame, and things began to shift slightly here and there. And at the end of 6 months, the organization stopped the sponsorship, but they were happy with whatever they had seen as change. But this gentleman came back a month later and he said, now I'm going to fund for my own growth. And this answers your question, post traumatic growth. He said, now I want to grow as an individual, which I should have at the age of 12, but I could not. So, post traumatic growth, we all talk about post traumatic stress. People also talk about post traumatic stress disorder, which is a real thing, which we cannot run away from. It's a real thing. It is something that we have to acknowledge, we have to address, and we have to give it due attention and due care, all that it needs. However, the story doesn't stop there. There's a good number of cases who, from their traumatic stress or losses or bereavement, have returned back to life with a deeper growth at the existential level, at the person level. They have emerged people who have perhaps developed a greater sense of appreciation for life, a greater sense of emotional investment in relationship. They have somewhere repurposed their life or found a new meaning and new purpose to life. They have dedicated themselves to a greater cause beyond their own pain. So this is post-traumatic growth. So the work that I do, so by the way, this case created a fascination in me about this work. And two, three more referrals happened. So after I had done two, three cases, I felt this confidence and this clarity that I want to do this work. So I started to acquire education, but my main work continued to be leadership and organization change and development, wherein my focus was more on resilience and existential well-being, emotional well-being, transitions, etc., life purpose. However, I was just at the back of my mind was developing this thing that maybe at one point in time when I will take retirement from active organizational consulting, perhaps this is where I would shift my energy and focus. Until in 2014, loss hit me. When I was hit by a tragedy that nobody should, a tragedy of that order that nobody should ever have to um, even imagine. It's such a profound tragedy. That's when I was totally shaken and shattered. As the lady of the house, the mother to my younger son, I could hold things together, but I perhaps needed help for myself also. My grief was too traumatic, too complex, too deep, too acute, and too shattering. Unfortunately, I didn't find any help for myself. Not that there are not no grief therapist in India. I'm sure there must be many, but somehow my search did not lead me to any grief expert. And that created in me a strong motivation. I said, now I want to take it upon myself to make sure that I, uh, you know, make this help available to as many people as I can reach out to. And then 2016, then thereafter, then I dedicated myself to professional training and professional certification. I was already getting trained, but this time it was with a clear focus to deepen my understanding. So, what I do in leadership resilience and well being purpose, transitions, and post traumatic growth zone is I help organizational leaders through these difficult transitions. I help them grow through their grief, through their trauma, and navigate through these difficult transitions of life with a sense of resilience and purpose. And but this is not what I limit my. In fact, I'm doing a lot more work in life space with individuals and families in small groups. And I also train professionals who want to develop this education and skill to be able to do grief, trauma, and resilience work. So this is what I do. I hope I have answered. A long
Yeah.
answer for a small question.
No, but that discussion was necessary to understand exactly what you do. So thank you so much for explaining it. Now let's come to your book, Grief, Growth, and Grace. So of course it's a non-fiction, but I was noticing that you have used some case studies. So I just want to know that are these case studies real or you have fictionalized them
Yes,
to give a better understanding?
I have condensed them. I have, with the consultation and with the consent of the protagonists, who are all real protagonists. Many of them I have directly worked with, some of them I have indirectly supported, but they are all known stories to me, personally known, whether in professional capacity or in personal capacity. So, um, with the consultation and consent of the protagonists, we have selected what part of their story to share and highlight. Obviously, their stories are far larger and far more expansive than what we have shared in the book. These are real stories, and but all the identities have been masked because nobody was willing to reveal their
Hmm.
identities. So the names have been fictionalized, except chapter 9. Chapter 9 story is of Dr. Robert A. Niemeyer. He is the leading grief exponent in the world, and he is the creator of a particular kind of grief therapy, which is called grief therapy as meaning reconstruction. So the focus of that therapy form is entirely on returning to life with a greater sense of meaning. So he is my grief psychology mentor. And when I asked him that, do you want me to mask? He said, no, why? The whole world knows my story. So he's the only protagonist with whom I have not worked as a professional. I mean, I just mostly learn from him, but I also work with him as a colleague. But all of the stories I know personally, uh, and many of them professionally. The last chapter does not have a human story. Last chapter has a non-human story, which has been contributed. It's a myth. It's a folk tale, but it has been
Hmm.
contributed by my younger son called Pratyush.
Okay. And I was noticing that Dr. Robert A. Nemer has also written the foreword for your book.
Yes, yes. So when I asked him for the forward at that point in time, A, he was very busy. B, there was a difficult transition in his life that he was going through. And so he's not one to ever say no. But he said, Nina, you know that it's really a difficult time and I don't want to give you something just like that. I said, yes. Even I don't want you to. I said, okay, then at least give me something for my book cover. Give me a nice blurb at least. So something, because he had read the book in good parts while I was working on the manuscript. I had been running with him, and he had read, he had critiqued, he had contributed thoughts, he had given me perspectives. So he was very familiar with the book and the content and the design of it. So he said, fine, okay, I will do that. So while waiting for a flight at the airport, he sat down to write the blurb and his foreword emerged. So the three sentences blurb became 400 words long forward. So,
Okay.
so yeah, that's very sweet. But that's coming from a very deep knowing about the book
Yeah,
and about my
absolutely.
work and about my work.
Yeah, that's true. So, I want to know that how did this book materialize into your mind? Was it a way of coping the grief that you were facing, or you just had this idea that maybe you should write it down because it would be a huge help to many people who are facing such kind of issue?
Second was the major motivation for my own. I would say, cathartic release. That too also I had not consciously written. Before this, my grief memoir had come out. This is called A Mother's Cry, A Mother's Celebration. This had come out in 2016. This was my cathartic release. These were stream of consciousness, free flowing in a state of unknowing whatever I had kind of just channeled my pain as on paper. It's something that one day my younger son happened to read through bits and pieces of that, and he said that you owe it to other mothers like you. So you should compile it. So that's how I compiled, and it did help several mothers. Um, the book did not sell very many copies because I did not do any promotion. So world doesn't know about this book. Yet I received mails from Brazil, Romania, many from US, from Australia, from Singapore, Indonesia, and several from India. I might be missing one or two countries, maybe offhand. I don't recall. And that gave me an idea that I felt that we need to have a book in the market which will address the ultimate user, the ultimate griever. Most of the books that I had read, and I can't tell you how many I have read, I don't have count. The number of books I have read on grief, on trauma, on post traumatic growth, bereavement, loss, non death loss is pretty large, but most of those books are written for the professionals, for the practitioners. Very few of them address the griever themselves.
Hmm.
Something
Right.
that, say, if a griever doesn't have access to a grief therapist, a grief professional, but they came to help themselves. So something that is available to them as a support, not necessarily a fixed guide, not at all an alternative to a grief therapist. A grief therapist obviously has greater contribution to make, not a substitute for that, but nonetheless something that can hold their hand. So that is where the motivation had emerged in my mind. But nonetheless, when I was still kind of working on the idea, it was emerging more like an academic book because this is what I had done previously. I had done a large amount of academic and professional writing in my subject area and done extensive editing, but that was mostly limited to the professional practitioner oriented and academics oriented. So my style was emerging more like that, and this book was supposed to. Um, I was supposed to explore it with another publisher who's more focused on professional books. That publisher, international publisher, but focused on professional books. Some turn of events, and um, I reached Rupa with this book. I wanted to republish it in the mainstream publication. But one thing led to another, and they said, "This you have already published, and we are not willing to, take this forward. But we would like you to write on the subject for us. This is a subject we want to address."
Okay.
So when that conversation took forward, and I spoke to my guide and I sought his opinion, I told you, Dr. Niemeyer, my grief psychology
Yeah.
mentor. And he said, "No, Nina, of course you have to go for this offer because you and I, what we have been talking, that there's no book available for the end user. You have now a chance to write one book for the." So that's how the whole thing developed over a period of 3 years or so. 2019, the idea had concretized and had started to work on this. 2020 is when I got into agreement with Rupa. But before that, one thing had happened. 2019, I had also received an invite for from an international journal called Appreciative Inquiry Journal, Appreciative Inquiry Practitioner Journal. This is the only journal in appreciative inquiry space, and I serve on the board also, editorial board. So there, I had already done two issues for them. So there was an invite to do a third issue, design and lead editor third issue, which they wanted on this theme, grief. And then I proposed post-traumatic growth also. So that issue we had started working on in 2019. And as chance would have it, its release date was 5th May 2020, the time when we had already got deep into pandemic world over. There
Okay.
was so much trauma, so much loss happening, so much grief spread all around. So that issue was found to be very timely, and that received a lot of attention world over. And people, exchanged that issue. And so that also encouraged me, my publisher, my mentor, everybody. We got this feeling. I had not just lead edited, but I had also contributed to articles in that and a poem. So everybody felt that I should take up writing this book as the next logical, uh, you know, step.
Wonderful. Okay, now let's talk about grief, growth, and then grace. So I want to know that is this a model that you have created on your own, or is this actually an existing model that you have used by doing a lot of research? So how you have used and portrayed grief, growth, and grace?
So the model actually is in the second part, which is titled Growth.
Okay.
The book is in three parts: grief, growth, grace, and there's no two or and. So what I'm trying to convey is that grief, growth, grace, they are all independent, unique constructs. At the same time, they are coexistential pilgrims. I'm using the word pilgrimage for grief journey in this book. That's my metaphor. The model comes in second part, which is the growth part. And the model that I have created is itself is also called growth. It's an acronym where G is for grief affirmation, R is for resilient adaptation, O is for opening to the emergent. Emergent as in post loss reality. Life, life just changes totally in the aftermath of loss. Could be non-death loss or death loss, or could be a traumatic accident or something else. And then W is for way to well-being. That is like at some point in time you want to return to life, and therefore you want to rebuild. You need to rebuild, even if you don't feel strength, but you have to rebuild a little bit of sense of well-being to be able to, re-engage with life. T is a little T and H are little, deeper level phases or aspects. T is for transformation. Now, this T is relating more to the post traumatic growth thing.
Okay.
That there are some people who transform their pain into purpose.
Okay.
So that transformation phase, and the H is finally harmonious re-emergence in life with a greater purpose, greater cause, deeper meaning. So this model, growth model, to answer your question, I have developed over a period of time. It's not come just in the wake of the book. This is something that I had been developing and practicing and fine tuning. But I have to give credit where it belongs. That is, all the experts that I have learned from, most of all my mentor, but so many other experts that I have learned from, um, all the self study that I have done. Um, but very importantly, very crucially, all that I have learned from my clients and other people who have allowed me the privilege to walk with them in their grief journey. What you learn from real stories is far more valuable than what you learn from the science and the
Yeah.
craft of the work. And finally, of course, my own lived wisdom in the wake of my own loss. What I knew before as a subject, even though I did it very well, I was getting very good feedback for my work. But my own loss uh, took me to a deeper level of connection with my work.
Okay.
So this is my model.
And
In
you
fact,
also,
there's also a tiny model in the same. So this part, second part, has 7 chapters. First chapter, third chapter, which is third chapter in total order, introduces this model. In the chapter number 4 to 9, they elaborate this model. Each of the 6 aspects. Now, these 6 aspects are phases, but they are not necessarily sequential phases. They're not chronological.
okay.
Anybody can start from wherever they feel their need and their context is most relevant and most strong. So many people, in fact, come to straight work with R, that is resilient adaptation. Many people go to W for way for well-being. And in the intro chapter, which is the first chapter in this part and third in the book, I have explained one more framework, which is also my own creation, which is the spiral of grief and growth, which is
Okay.
where I say that they exist in a continuing, intertwined spiral. If one side is grief, it does not preclude growth.
Okay.
It creates room for growth. And if one side is growth, it does not demand that first grief be done with and then only growth will start. They are in an entwined spiral and they coexist.
Okay. You also talk about growth mandala, so I would like to know that what is exactly growth mandala that you have used here.
So, growth mandala is the name of the model. However, where is mandala word coming from? Maybe I guess you want to know why growth mandala. Have I got your question right?
Sorry, I didn't hear you. I was just reading the message. Can you just
Yeah.
repeat?
Yeah, I said so. Growth mandala is the name of the model,
Okay.
which we have just talked about. But I guess maybe you want to know why the word mandala. Where is it
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
from?
Exactly.
So many of us we know about mandala. In fact, these days mandala meditation, mandala sketching, mandala art they have become very
Yeah.
popular.
Hmm.
Basically, it is a word coming from Pali,
Okay.
ancient Pali, and from Sanskrit, and it would mean circle. It's
Hmm.
been popularized more through Buddhist practice, but it emerged from
Hmm.
Hindu scriptures, Pali and Sanskrit language word. Basically, mandala is a field of consciousness
Okay.
which has space for both not knowing, for blankness, as well as supreme knowing, the supreme consciousness. It's a field of consciousness which holds both of them together,
Okay.
the Buddhahood as well as the not knowing.
Hmm.
So this is why I chose the construct of mandala to call my model growth mandala. My model growth also, it is arranged like a mandala. So
Okay.
mandala has typically 4 parts. The external is a ring of fire, which is
Okay.
where we are sitting at the most external fence from our inner self. Now, this fence or the circumference of the mandala is interplaying with the world
Okay.
outside of me. What in Buddhist practices or ancient Hindu they would call samsara,
Hmm.
samsar.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it is engaged with the world there, and that's when the person in grief, when we are sitting there and we are over occupied with the worldly worries and we are over influenced by the worldly dictats about what we should do about our grief and all that, there's a sense of blankness, there's a sense of bereftness. Person doesn't know what the inner call is, person doesn't know how to touch the inner emotions. And
Hmm.
from that, so mandala approach is saying that I help you cross the threshold of ring of fire. So that's the first aspect of phase, grief affirmation. And then
Okay.
comes the second, that is the ring of thunderbolt.
Okay.
So a ring of Vajra. So a ring of Vajra is about action. So resilient adaptation is about, how I adapt back to my post-loss life, my post-trauma life. Because if I'm alive, I have to live. And if I have to live, I have to adapt. And if I have to adapt, why not then also kind of regenerate a sense of well-being? So second phase of mandala is about that, about intentional action to adapt back. Adaptive grieving starts here. And
Okay.
then comes the ring of lotus, the inner ring, which is where the supreme knowing begins to surface, which is where the deeper
Hmm.
transformation happens. And eventually the center which finds some kind of truth. Obviously, we are not sages. I'm not a sage to find some kind of a supreme enlightenment. I'm not a Buddha to find a supreme enlightenment. But I do find one of my, say, deepest truth about how I want to take this forward in life, about what my deeper self needs. That's the center. Now, with this center, what I'm proposing in harmonious reemergence is that with this deep truth, when we come out, we go back to samsara, the world,
Okay.
but we re-engage with the world with a sense of knowing, and we re-engage with the world with a sense of meaning and purpose. We want to pass on the gift of knowing that we have got to the world in the service of the world. So that's why mandala is my motive for my model. It takes the griever through all those four aspects of mandala.
So you have kind of taken a lot of inspiration from Buddhism.
Not exactly Buddhism, as I said. Mandala is basically. I would not limit myself to spiritual context. I believe more in existential, and if mandala is something that, as a concept, as a metaphor, something I found relevant, so I have taken it without unnecessarily, carrying in my mind this notion that I have to take its Buddhist version or Hindu version.
Okay.
I have taken the construct because this construct speaks very well to the whole idea of grief growth together.
Hmm. Right.
Not because of
And I would just
religious or social influence.
okay. So I would just apologize for the distraction because I was just reading through the comments that are pouring in, and they're quite, positive and happy comments. I would just read out one. Monica Singh is saying that she's reading your book and is amazed by the clarity of thought and purpose in the narrative. So she thanks you for writing this book. And
Oh,
there's Kiran
thank you,
Modi who's
Monica.
saying, lovely to hear you. And Sadbir ma'am has also joined. She has written enlightening concepts. So I was just going through those. Thank you for explaining this mandala
Thank
concept.
you
I'm
so much.
sure many will feel. No, we have some more questions to you. So
Thank you,
this session is
everyone.
not
Thank you,
over
everyone.
yet.
Yeah. I will just mention Dr. Kiran Modi is herself a big inspiration for me, and she is one of those people
Okay.
who have contributed a praise blurb for the book. She's a huge inspiration for me and many other bereaved mothers like me. And thank you, Monica.
Okay.
Thank you, Sadhbir.
Now let's talk about this second book that you've written. Sorry, that's the first book. This is the second one. That's called A
Yes,
Mother's Cry, A Mother's Celebration. So I really want to
yes.
know that how is it different from your first book? Sorry, the second. I'm confusing it. Grief, Growth, Grace. Is it how is it different from the second book, and why you have titled this A Mother's Cry, A Mother's Celebration?
So this is the first. This is my memoir, my own personal story. Though in Grief, Growth, Grace, also in every chapter, you will find a tiny glimpse from my story. That part of my story which relates to the particular chapter, the chapter where it appears. So, just a tiny bit of my own story also appears in every chapter. But this is basically my own grief memoir from the time my loss happened to the time that I have written this. But of course, much water has flown under the bridge since then. Why did I title so? I did not really think much about the title, Mona Lisa ji. In fact, this book is written in an unconscious, what the professionals would call stream of consciousness thought process. You know, as an author and publisher yourself. Um, it was free flowing. I think it was because, as I told you, I did not get any help, neither at home nor in professional space. So So the only help that I could get was from my younger son, but he was too young and he was studying 2,300 kilometers away from home. He was himself in a huge trauma. I needed to be his support system and his container. So so I think the only therapist I got was the cheapest therapist, but the most effective therapist in the world, which is my journal. So I would let my pain be poured on paper whenever it happened.
Okay.
So it was chits and bits and pieces and loose papers and sometimes even newspaper cuttings where I was writing whenever something happened, and I would just pour it out on paper. And so nothing in this book is conscious, not the least the title. Um, Only the last chapter in this book is a conscious creation, where when sat down to put this together, uh, last chapter is what I sat down to write. That is a thought out chapter. And while I concluded that chapter, and I ran it with three people, including my younger son, two more people, the final chapter, and somewhere my younger son happened to mention that, Mama, it's not just your cry, it's also your celebration. So when he said it's not just your cry, but it's also your celebration, that thought immediately stuck. And I ran it with the other two people with whom, I had run the final chapter. Eventually, six, seven more beta readers had read that. But everybody just loved his casual observation when he said that it's not just your cry, it's also your celebration. And so we chose that as title, A Mother's Cry, A Mother's Celebration.
Wonderful. And it has been published by which publishing house?
So this is something which was, I will not name the traditional publisher because obviously it doesn't feel nice to talk about this thing openly. But it was to come
Okay.
out with a traditional publisher, but they wanted few changes in it, which in their wisdom they were very right, and I did not question their wisdom. Few changes perhaps to make it more market friendly. And I was
Right.
somehow not willing for that because it was a stream of consciousness, as I told you, free flowing, pouring out from my heart. So I was not willing to do any cosmetic edits in that. I was willing to let them do some copy edits and let them do if there was any grammatical thing that they found they wanted to reconstruct sentences or something. But I was not willing to do any cosmetic play with the book. Um, so that's how then it didn't work out. So eventually I went for self publishing through Notion Press.
Okay. So this was a wonderful session today, but before I conclude, I want to ask one thing that you have explained so many things from grief to growth, grace, and mandala effect, and everything you have explained so well. But I really want to know that during your, the all the sessions that you take with so many people, the cases that you have solved and done, and do you really feel, and also being a person who has also seen loss and you've been through bereavement, so does grief and trauma actually heal? Does it really go away, or it stays somewhere like a scar? What would you say?
I will. The two words which you have used when you said you solved many cases. So, honestly speaking, grief and trauma are works which you do not do to solve anything. You do
Okay,
not
my
do to
apologies.
fix anything. Yeah, no apology. I'm just sharing my perspective. These works are not meant to be solved or to be fixed or to be managed. Grief, I have come to understand, is something that you learn to affirm and integrate in
Okay.
your life trajectory. You learn to affirm, you learn to live with it. In many cases, it stays. In many cases, it does not have a closure for life. And that is fine as long as it has not created any pathological or medical complications, in which case professional help should be sought. But if grief has come to stay, it is absolutely fine. In in many cases, it actually does not stay like a scar. It actually stays like a very graceful companion. If you learn to live with grief, grief helps you learn to live with your altered life. Grief
Okay.
is actually a friend. Grief is not an enemy. Grief is body, mind, heart systems way to help you let out your cry, to help you acknowledge your pain, to help you affirm your loss. Grief is nothing but another form, another face of love. It is the sad song of love. It is like my second chapter is titled Grief, the Cry of Love. So, grief is nothing but love only, but a particular face of love. And grief has come to take the place of love. If your deceased loved one who has ceased to be in mortal form but continues to be there in your consciousness. Why? Because the body has died, the relationship does not die. The
Right.
manifest physical love has died, or the scope for that has died. But the deep psychological energy level love that you have with your deceased loved one, that does not die. So if love is not dying, grief is only another manifestation of love. If grief has come to stay, it is absolutely fine. To answer your question, there's so many people that I have worked with who have learned to affirm their grief, who have learned to live with it, who have learned to integrate it on their life trajectory. And why integrate it on your life trajectory? Because grief is another significant event of your life. Loss is another significant event of your life. Loss could be non death loss also. That can also trigger grief. There could be several kinds of non death losses which can trigger grief. This birth, then the child grows, then the child goes through education, then the child is married, child himself or herself, raises a family, then their promotions, the retirement, eventually death is the final event of life. Somewhere in between, loss has happened. Loss is also a significant event on the trajectory of life. Those who learn to affirm grief, they learn to integrate and harmonize it in an acceptant way. They learn to let grief walk with them, and when grief walks with them with a sense of peace, grief makes room for post traumatic growth. For you to make room for post traumatic growth, you have to learn to affirm grief. If you think it because I have expertise, because I have done some work, because I have gained experience, if you think my grief is over, no, let me tell you, grief has become my forever companion. It's a companion, however, now it's a companion in meaning, with resilience, with purpose. It's a companion that is graceful companion.
So that actually sums up your book, Grief, Growth, and Grace. And I would request everybody who is going to watch this video later, please pick this book up. It will really help you if you are facing any kind of grief issue. It will really give you a lot of solace. I have read some few, I guess 10 to 12 pages, and I was surprised. Actually, I was liking the book because non-fiction is something that I'm not into, but I really started to enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to read it and review it soon. So thank you, Dr. Neena Verma. It was wonderful talking to
Thank you
you,
so much.
and I look forward to many of your other books in the future.
Thank you so much. Can I just take 1 minute?
Please, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So before we close, I just wanted to make a one mention. We have not talked at length about the third part, which is the grace part. There are two chapters in that. Grace is again a framework that I have created, which is gratitude, reverence for life, affirmation for life, compassion, and essence of life. So, but before that, the first chapter in this part is what I would urge all those who have unfortunately suffered traumatic bereavement, whose loss and grief is feeling complex and difficult to heal. Please, if you could read that chapter, This chapter focuses on forgiveness in the context of grief. As I told you in the beginning, I don't know how many books I have read. There's a huge number of courses I have attended. There's a large number of experts I have worked with, learned from. But I have come across very little content anywhere that talks about forgiveness in the context of grief. And that's why I devoted this chapter, included this chapter. And this chapter is actually the longest chapter in the book. And please read why, because forgiveness is an unseen, unrecognized, ununderstood aspect of grief. But let me tell you, very important and very essential. So, forgiveness in the context of grief, please read, especially those who are having some kind of a traumatic bereavement, traumatic grief journey. And please know I'm always there. You can reach out to me, and I'm always there to help you. And finally, maybe some months later, I would send you a copy of my next book, which is in the process. This book is on the theme of resilience, and I'm introducing again a new construct and a very expansive model of resilience, which I call deep resilience.
Okay.
Thank you.
Surely, I will look forward to your book. And thank you so much for joining today. And there are lots of comments, so please take some time and, if
I
possible,
will.
respond to them. And looking forward to talk to you again. Have a great evening,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Nina. Bye.
You too. Thank you so much, Mona Lisa ji, for your time and interest. And I will look up on the comments. Thank you.
Sure. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. So that was Dr. Nina Verma I was talking to, and we were discussing not only her book but also many other things. Like we have talked about her model growth mandala. We have also, talked about post-traumatic growth and how you can affirm grief. That is the most important thing, that you have to affirm it, and then you are in a journey of overcoming it. You cannot actually completely overcome it, but it stays with you. Like she said, that it becomes your altered identity. So you learn a lot from this book. If you are someone who has suffered a loss, or even if not, please go ahead and read this book. It's really an eye-opener. So this is Mona Lisa Joshi signing off. I hope you had enjoyed the session. You have all enjoyed it, and the comments are showing that. So thank you so much for joining, everybody. Bye. Take care. Good evening all.